Welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast, the photo imaging industry's leading news source. Here's your host, Gary Peugeot. The Dead Pixel Society podcast is brought to you by Media Clip, Advertech Printing, and Independent Photo Imagers.
Hello again and welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. I'm your host, Gary Peugeot, and today we're joined by Joaquin Cuenca, the CEO and co-founder of Freepik. Now, Joaquin has been on the podcast in the past, December of 2021, so you're encouraged to go back in time, if you haven't already listened to that episode, and listen to that so you can hear the background of this interesting company. But they've got so much more news about how they've kind of pivoted and added tools and added functionality to their website that I said it's time to have them back on. So hi, Joaquin, how are you today?
Hi, Gary. I'm doing very well, and thank you for having me back.
So for those who aren't going to take the time or may have forgotten the last episode, tell us a little bit about Freepik, kind of the elevator pitch, if you will, of kind of what the company does. Then we'll go into where you're going.
Sure. So we started in 2010, at the end of 2010, beginning 2011, as a stock image website. Very initially, we were a search engine. We help people find great images that were available for free on the internet. We pivoted. We started creating images and allowing artists from the world to upload images to Freepik. We created a marketplace, and we came aside for stock illustrations, photography, icons. We had plenty of content, and we became very, very popular because a big part of our collection was available for free to everyone in the world. So I think we are the most popular stock site in the world in terms of downloads, in terms of visits. We get over 100 million visits per month. In terms of downloads, every year we get like 1.5 billion downloads on our page. And lately, in the last year and a half, we have been creating new tools on our platform to help people create and edit images. And of course, it's been with using the latest developments on AI.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that, because you've pivoted a few times over the years, right? I mean, you started out as one thing, and then you added another thing, and then you've done another thing. And adding tools is a big jump, I think, because instead of being a resource for people to find things and to find what they're looking for, they can now create their own vision on your platform.
First of all, let me say that we actually are in a luxury position because we pivot from being a success to hopefully a bigger success.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Exactly.
So it's not like we were failing before. Like as a search engine, we were very popular, and when we started creating our own content, we were able to deliver more value to the users, and that's what we're looking at. Okay, so we are listening to the users and trying to understand what we can do to give them more value. So one of the feedback that we get is that people don't always find what they want on the website. Okay,
right.
And there are multiple ways. There are multiple ways to address that problem. You can go and source more content, but of course there are diminishing returns on that. Okay?
Right.
You get content that just becomes too niche, becomes too expensive. And we are very, very cost conscious, and we pass those savings to the user. So our offer is very, very affordable. Okay, it's part of what we are. So there is a point where we need to cut our losses. Again, we cannot chase the long tail forever. We need to be very conscious of what we bring to the. And the plan B was to give the user enough flexibility so they could create the assets that they want, without having to commission them to be on the platform. And that's why we started getting into AI. Okay. And then it's been, one step after the other. Like a consequence of doing that is that we created the first text to image that we put on Freepik. But the problem with that users had is that very often it gives you bad results. Let's be honest. Okay, you don't get the right image right off the bat.
Because, to be honest, most people don't know how to describe an image.
Right, absolutely. So sometimes, an image is actually way better than words. It's very difficult.
Exactly.
And computers are not extraordinary yet at understanding long sentences. So
Right.
you give it a very accurate description, and you're not guaranteed that they will generate what you want, and you have no guarantee that it will be flawless. Okay? So,
or even like if you change the sequence of those images, right? If you put the same number of words in one way, you'll get a certain set. But if you change them around, so maybe certain descriptions are in the front of the sentence, can come out completely different.
Yeah, what we call, let's say that what we call understanding for computers is still a bit fuzzy. Okay, it's complicated. We could not address all the issues, but we have been changing our technology to address what we can address.
Right.
So something that we did is that we found ways to speed up the generation. And in a way, we decided that was good because we will be able to fail faster.
Right.
Okay, we are going to give you wrong images, at least users will be able to discard them very quickly and find those that actually work and are much faster. Another thing that we did is we realized that sometimes people have a very precise idea on their heads what they wanted. And it was very difficult to describe it. And even when they did it, we were not understanding it. So we added a mode where you can sketch an image, type a description and sketch actually the composition. So you get an image that gets generated based on the composition and the description.
Right.
And the cool thing, the wow factor, is that you get those images generated on the fly as you draw.
Right.
Because we were able to speed so much the generation that we were getting images in under 100 milliseconds. So we were able to generate them on every stroke.
Right.
Okay. And again, and we keep iterating. Like another one is that we see that the images very often they are okay, but they have some glitches.
Right.
Part of the image is actually at the opposite of how we humans work. Like we humans, when we create an image, if you think about drawing something, we usually get all the details right, but then you start building up the composition. And if you are not a good designer, you lose track and composition ends up completely messed up. If you have fonts have the wrong size, the sizes are all wrong.
Right.
A computer is actually completely opposite. They nail the composition, but then when they go into the detail, they get completely.
Everyone's seen those AI generated images with people with 6 fingers and an elbow going the wrong way, and you just know there's something off, right?
Yeah, and actually that changes how people consume those images.
Right.
Like with a human generated image, from a first sight, if it works, it's good. Okay. With an AI generated image, you actually need to find out all the mistakes.
Right.
It's like a game where you can get in trouble if you don't spot the mistakes.
Right.
So we are building a tool that is a retouch where you can go over small sections of the image, go over them, and it regenerates that part. It tries again. Okay. So we are trying to patch the limitation of the current systems.
You touched on something earlier that I took a note on, which I think is interesting because you can't chase the long tail forever. I think that was very interesting because there is sort of that sort of idea back in the old stock photo days or the stock image or stock graphics ages that if we just load in all this stuff, eventually people will buy that one icon or that one thing because it will just be everything. And I think what's happening now, like you said, it's sort of it's just wasteful. It's like there are things people aren't going to ever use, but they are going to want something customized that suits their own interests or needs at that point.
Yeah, listen, there are cases where, by definition, almost users cannot use something that exists already. Like if you are looking for a logo for your company, obviously you cannot use a stock logo.
Right.
Okay? And there are bespoke use cases. Like if you want a drawing of your father, your mother, your kids, whatever, from a picture, it doesn't work. You need to go to an illustrator, or now you can do it with AI. Okay? There are many use cases where stock images were not cutting it.
Right.
And what happens in practice on stock sites is that, first of all, you need to get an approximation of what the user searches.
Right.
Because you don't have the right thing. Okay, if you want something very precise, a lady with a red dress that is looking backwards, and you start getting precise, at some point you need to compromise.
Right.
So when you have a collection of images that you can show and you don't know which one is the most relevant one for what the user search, you need to start ranking them.
Right.
And the signals that we all use, they're usually based on past performance.
Right.
So if many people prefer that image in the past, it's likely that it's very good and that will be better than some other image.
Right.
Okay? So basically what you get is a game where a few players start winning consistently because they won in the past.
Right.
And you get some images that are left in dust because they don't get early traction.
Right.
And they never surface. Okay, so there is always a subset of the images on a stock collection that have a decent number of downloads and revenue for the creators of the images, and a huge number of images that never see the light of the sun, so to say. And it's a waste for those who created those images, and it's a waste. I mean, at some point, I think we need to understand that it will be difficult to monetize images that are just too similar to so many of the images that we have already.
Right, because there's so many. Like the lady with the red dress you just mentioned, there could be thousands of variations of that, right?
And listen, and if you come up with something original, the challenge here is that people usually, you need people searching for this original thing, this original thought.
Right,
which is
exactly
kind of contradictory, right? You need to nail, it's a very difficult game because you need to nail something kind of new, but that is trendy.
Right.
Yeah, that's
exactly. Yeah, it's almost like a hashtag, right? In the sense that it has to be unique enough that the content will stand out, but it has to be something people actually search for.
Yeah.
Right. So if I search for, a volcano, but instead of lava, it's chocolate pudding coming out of it, that's very unique and specific and may not exist, but who knows? Maybe it does. I don't know. But it's kind of interesting how, now that people can have these tools, they can actually create that. Let's say, for example, I was a company that made chocolate pudding. That might be something that I want, and I can't find that in stock. So maybe I go to your company and I create that.
Yeah, I'm for the record. We try to play synergies with the stock content that we have. Like in your example, if you find an image of a volcano that is kind of close to what you want, but it's not spitting chocolate or something.
Yeah, exactly.
You can. We want to make it very seamless to go from this image and say, okay, I want this, but spitting chocolate.
Yeah.
And get the volcano spitting chocolate just like the other one, and actually counting that as a sale for the person.
So it's an iteration, right?
Yeah. So we try to use the images that we have as seeds of new creation. And when the user does that, we attribute it to.
When you were developing your AI platform, were you able to use your own data sets to help train the AI?
So far, we have used not so much of our data set. We have used like a few million images, but it's more like correlating the searches that we have on our platform with particular images that behave well, fine-tune existing models.
Okay.
We have been we fine-tune for different reasons. One of the reasons is to get results that are closer to what we have on the platform. Another reason is to try to remove bias from the models. Like, for example, taking a stock model, if you search for woman, just that word woman, in 30% of the cases, it comes out naked. Right. And that's not what users expect.
Right.
I hope so. That statistic doesn't come from what users expect. It comes from the statistic of the images on the internet.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And you need to rebalance that statistic to get closer to user expectation.
Because if somebody on your platform, if they were looking for that, they would probably specify that.
Exactly. I mean, it's very different.
Yeah.
If
Your customers and clients and whatnot are not really a reflection of the image catalog on the internet as a whole. They're looking for something different. So that's for a business use or a promotion or a commercial or an ad or personal expression or something like that.
This is it. Like sometimes nudity is perfectly valid. I mean, there's
Yeah.
plenty of nudity.
But they will probably specify that in the search thing.
Exactly. But they need to be precise. You don't want that by surprise or by accident.
Right.
Okay. So that's another reason to fine-tune models. And I will say another big one is to make them faster. Actually, the method that we have to make them faster is through fine-tuning. So it gets a bit technical, but it's one of those fine-tunes. So they are in one of those fine-tunings. It's we use data that we have from images that we have on our platform.
Mm-hmm. I'm kind of fascinated a little bit about some of the tools you have because it's not just, and again, because it's becoming more and more commonplace, the AI image generator where people are basically, licensed, getting, data sets or whatnot from, some of the various pools that are out there. It seems like anybody can put this stuff in there, but you've kind of taken the approach of it's almost an iterative process in the sense where, it's pretty easy to refine the image as you go without having to resubmit the entire query to begin with. And sometimes it's frustrating as a person who's trying to generate an image. Let's say, for example, you get something, you just need want to tweak it a little bit. But in a lot of cases, if you resubmit it, you say, okay, I want the dress to be blue or whatever, you're not going to get the same look. You're going to get something completely new, but with the dress being blue. Whereas I think with your system, you just can kind of do like tweaks and kind of keep that same look as it goes.
Yeah, let's say that in our mind, there is a big gap between having a nice technology and having a product.
Right.
And the early technology here, which is pretty amazing, is being able to convert a text to an image, or more properly, an embedding to an image. The product needs to take into account how people will use that.
Mm-hmm.
Having to type the full description of an image is actually pretty difficult because you need to come up with ideas that describe the lining, the perspective, the graphic style of the image. If you don't do that, you will get a very narrow set of results.
Right.
And most people don't have top of their mind like different names from lining conditions, perspectives, styles.
Right.
And that's something that we surface in the UI to make it easy for users to play with that. Again, we win by being fast, so users can iterate very quickly, and by giving them many, many choices.
Right.
Okay. Something that we do internally is that we also play with what we call the prompt. We don't take verbatim the prompt that you submit, and we try to inject some alternatives to the prompt so that you can see more variety without having to specify it in detail.
Right.
Okay. So in a way, how I see it, I often use, an example about ChatGPT. Obviously, everybody knows about ChatGPT. But, the core technology here was the GPT, and the GPT was a model that was able to complete text.
Right.
So you start typing something, and it just,
it was an autofill type of technology.
Exactly. Like it is, the technology is something that resumes a sequence of text. This is it. And OpenAI had the brilliant idea of saying, okay, the sequence of text that you have to complete is, this is a conversation between an assistant and a user. The user says, colon, and there they put what the user says. System says, colon, please complete. And then it becomes a conversational engine. It's a way more useful product.
Right.
So sometimes you need this slight twist to take a technology and then to build a product that is used by everyone.
So what do you think the impact is going to be with the AI generated product line to your existing business?
Well, very difficult to forecast. There is a line of images that will be saved from AI generation.
Right.
For example, all the editorial images.
Sure.
They only want photos from the real world. Okay. They are images from places that, in my opinion, are quite safe. because if you want to know how Malaga, our hometown is, you
Right.
want really Malaga, not the dream of a system. Okay.
Right.
And likewise, if you want to know how people from different places in the world really are, there are many use cases that are not okay with an approximation to that. They want the real thing.
Right. Sure.
So I will say that there is a set of images, stock images in general, editorial images that are safe from AI-generated images. And there are a few ones that I expect in the future to be kind of obsolete.
Sure.
They will be generated with more precision
Right.
by AI systems.
Let's talk a little bit about kind of the ownership case, because when you're talking about a stock image or a stock graphic or something, there's an ownership there. The person's created it, they own the copyright. Well, at least in the US, they've determined that in AI images, no one owns it.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Photo retailers, energize your sales with ShareMe Chat, the proven texting platform. Using chat to text on your website keeps your customers connected and buying. See us at Pro and IPI to find out why dealers using ShareMe Chat close more sales without adding staff. Find out more at shareme.chat.
Yeah, it's a hot topic. Again, there are multiple people have different opinions on this one. So in Japan, for example, they rule that whatever comes out of a model is completely disconnected from the data set that was used to train this model. And as far as I understand, the European Union and the US have not yet issued a clear guidance on this matter. So it may be that it will maybe not be considered fair use if that happens. So in our case, we will need to retain a model from scratch using data that we have licensed. I will say that the vast majority of, or I think all AI generators will disappear in the short term. And I think the whole Gen AI industry will take a hit of probably a couple of years. I mean, the speed at which we are making progress, it will probably not take longer than that. There are already a few generators that are using only licensed data.
Sure.
So the Google one is using licensed data. And I don't know the status of the last DALI. Firefly from Adobe famously is using licensed data, with the caveat that they use some images, that they use images from Midjourney.
Sure. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I guess what I was thinking of was, let's say, for example, I'm a person who up until now was creating a lot of stock pictures, right? I was going to the Eiffel Tower and I was taking a lot of pictures, and I did sunsets, I did sunrises, I did cloudy days. I built a portfolio of those images that I wanted to monetize. Now, for certain uses, maybe some of those images will be, because like you said, they're unique or they're editorial or something like that. But for the most part, I think those kind of people are going to have a challenge, because let's say they start creating images within a generative platform. They still don't, depending on how the law shakes out, they're not going to own that image, right? So it'll just be interesting to see what happens to your creator community.
Yes. I mean, stock image contributors, they were not having an easy time before.
Right.
Already, it was challenging.
Right.
On this one, we don't know what will happen. Like in our case, we are also like licensing data to be used to train new models. And when we do that, we share revenues with contributors on 50-50. Okay.
I'm not saying there's not an opportunity. It's just going to be a very different one.
Yeah, I mean, just speaking from our experience on like stock photos, still early days, but we see potential this year to get even more revenues from training AI models than from the traditional model of licensed image. Okay. But it's absolutely true. I mean, there is potential for some of these use cases to vanish, to disappear. So in your example of the Eiffel Tower, I will take any time of the day the real Eiffel Tower with all the details. I will not take a dream of that.
Yeah.
But you are right. There are many use cases that probably many of them that had low value or that didn't exist before.
Sure.
The way I think about it is that it's actually also opening new doors. Okay, there were things that were impossible before that now become possible.
Right.
Like if you wanted an illustration for a blog, for example, it was not viable to hire an illustrator to do that
Right.
for a single blog. Okay, you don't get enough revenue from a
Right.
single blog post.
Right.
And now you can do that.
Right.
Okay, you wanted to illustrate a book for your kids, you could hire an illustrator, but we all know what happened is that you will not do it.
Right. Right.
Now it's something that can be done. And those models, at least those who are paying a license for the images that they use to train, they're extracting some revenues, and part of those revenues get to the original people that contributed to those images.
Awesome. So you said something earlier also that I made a note of, but I thought was interesting, which was that your system allows you to fail faster, which I thought was interesting. Can you expand on your thought process behind that? I just thought that was kind of an interesting phrase.
Yeah, it's been very realistic. There is a small fraction of the generated images today that actually work. So to get a good image with current state-of-the-art AI generators, it's a process that still takes minutes. It can take longer than that. In a way, by failing faster, you can get rid of all the images that don't work, and you can succeed faster also. And that's part of the thought process.
Right. I just made a note of that phrase. I'm going to use that somewhere. I'm not wasting time. I'm just failing faster. So talk a little bit about how the business model it is for Freepik on this. You're using a kind of a name called Picasso kind of to bundle these things under on your website. It's freepik.com/Picasso, Pikaso. And then you've got your selections under there. What was your idea behind that sort of segmentation of it?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that is harder than getting a brand well known is to repurpose a brand.
Right. Okay.
That's even more difficult. Okay. So the thing is that Freepik is very well known as a place where you can get free images, and we already made a pivot by allowing paid images on the platform.
Yeah.
Okay, that was hard enough. Picasso is something completely different for us. It's giving people a set of tools to create and to edit images. Right. And we thought that we needed to market it as a separate thing. So we picked Picasso and they bundle all the AI tools that we have been developing. And they all have an angle where we try to help creatives, artists create images faster.
Yeah.
Something funny is that we actually have not seen any cannibalization so far in our collection. We still have the same number of downloads, still growing little by little on the content side, but we get new people joining on the AI side that creating new things.
Sure.
On both.
And then there's a revenue model there, right? Where people have to pay at some point for to generate this, because I know it's a shocker to most people who are on the internet and think everything is free, but there's a lot of cost overhead to what you're doing.
Actually, the cost model is completely different. With stock, you have an initial cost to get an image, but then it's all virtually free to distribute that image.
Yeah.
With AI generators, you actually pay a small fee every time you generate an image.
Yeah.
So actually, the cost to run this part of the business is pretty substantial.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to do that for free. We need to charge people.
Yeah.
So we have a free tier, but then if you get the Freepik subscription, you get a much higher limit on the number of images that you can generate.
And is there a limit on, or do you have various to say, listen, you get a higher resolution download or that kind of thing, or is it just on the number of images you generate?
No, there is also there are limits on number of images. There are limits on number of images that you can enhance. There are limits on images that you can retouch.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot enhance up to 4K, if you are a free user.
Mm-hmm.
So there are
Yeah.
different limits. Enhance is a very, very expensive process, for example. So you only get one, I think. That's the last limit that we have. And if you become premium, we try to raise, in general, in the platform, we try to be unlimited within reason.
Right.
That is, we try to prevent people from crawling our site.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a big challenge, I would imagine, is to not have your costs being exploded by people just generate, because you are being charged. It's a small amount, but it's still going to add up over time if you're doing millions of images a month, that, there's a cost there. Whereas in the past, just doing a catalog search for a volcano, going back to the volcano, there's very little cost for that. So it is a very different model. How did you decide, or are you still playing with, what is that offering? Is that going to vary based on the products, or is it kind of seeing what the uptick is? Because I imagine you probably have a goal of, we have X number of free users and we want Y number of premium users.
Well, in general, we want to, first of all, we want to build products that add value to the users. So the first metric is retention of the users before we get into revenue.
Right.
Okay. And that's important for us because even free users give us a ton of value, because by observing how they react to the data, to the images that we create, we can know when we fail, and we can know, how to improve the product. But then we try to think of, okay, how much can we give for free so that we increase that retention, and when it's to ask for the user to become premium, to become a subscriber. It's not an exact science. We try to be generous on the free side, but at some point we just set the limit.
Sure.
And after that, in general, the rule is try to make the premium limit as high as realistically possible.
What is the most surprising thing you've seen for use on your platform? Because I think the sketch to image is crazy, and I can't wait to play more with that. But I mean, have you seen anything come through some of your users that is just an amazing application?
Reimagine had a ton of incredible applications. So Reimagine is a tool that we built where you submit an image.
Right.
It actually thinks about variations of this image.
Right.
So it understands the image, and then it dreams of different images that look similar to that one. That has been super interesting. Like, plenty of artists are using it to get a little bit of serendipity. It's like, surprise me. I want things like this, but it's not exactly what I want. Okay, so give me new ideas. That has been very useful. So in general, the reaction to Reimagine has been spectacular. The reaction to the sketch to image, it was mind-blowing. The sketch to image, I guess that it surprised everybody, because for many it was the first time that they saw something like this. I remember showing it live to a person here, and they were speechless. They were like, just like this, saying, "What is this? Wizardry. I mean, what is this?"
What is this magic you're showing to me? What is this?
Yeah, but they were serious,
Yeah.
No, truly.
Yeah.
What is this?
Yeah.
People were very impressed.
Yeah, because I think that is sort of like, there's like, maybe a lot of people, I've had this discussion with a lot of people about sort of this stuff, is that, not everyone is a storyteller. Not everyone's an artist, but everyone wants to be, right? And for the ability for someone to just, sketch that raw idea they have, and then see it on a screen, and then be able to iterate that to kind of get it to the way they want it, I think is going to be a really interesting tool to see how that gets used.
We have an artist in-house, Melissa. She's a photographer. She studied photography. She has a very strong background in photography. And now she's an excellent AI artist. And her feedback was that before, I had all those images on my head. I knew what I wanted, but I didn't have budget to set up the scene, set up the lights. It's very expensive.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's trying to capture like the image that is on your head.
Right.
And what she says that now with AI, I can actually instruct for the right image, and I can get the images out of my head. So for her, it was kind of liberating.
Yeah.
And she has been doing like absolutely stunning pieces of art
Yeah.
using.
That's awesome. That's great. So where can people go to get more information about Freepik? Where do you want them to go?
Well, I would suggest to just go to our landing page,
Mm-hmm.
freepik.com, and browse from there. Again, we have like more traditional like stock content images.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a section where we explain all the AI tools that we have. I will just you play around, okay? Play around a little bit, look at our tutorials that we have on YouTube. I hope that you will find, new ways to work with images.
Yeah, it's good. It's a great tool set. I really like it. I'm like I said, I've been playing with it. I have an account there. I've been playing with it. It'll be fun. You guys will probably get a premium out of me at some point once my free ones dry up. But thank you.
One day.
Well, thank you so much, sir. It's always good to see you. Thank you. Hopefully we'll see you in person this fall at some industry events. And it's always great to have you, Joaquin. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gary. It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. Read more great stories and sign up for the newsletter at www.thedeadpixelssociety.com.